Thank you and welcome to this very special video broadcast brought to you by BW Businessworld magazine. We have been running this for a while now, discussing the expectations before, and now, well, today was the big day. It is just over 3 hours since Finance Minister presented her budget. Now, I have with us an esteemed panel of industry captains who have seen it all over the years. Can I request Alok ji first, Alok Shriram ji from DCM Shriram Group, for his initial observations, particularly with respect to manufacturing sector, which is the subject matter for our discussion today. Are there any takeaways? What is your impression? Does it work for you? Alok ji.
Thank you. What I would say as some opening comments on the budget, not so much with regard to manufacturing, but all round, is that it is a fairly stable budget. It gives a projection of stability from in the government's thought process. They have not tried to fidget around as was the general tenure earlier. I think this is a budget which helps in speeding up transactions and also simplification of many transactions, which is obviously good for us, part of the ease of business. And I think by putting in a lot of emphasis on investments, especially government-driven investments and purchasing, it is trying to enhance the size of the economic pie in the country, which is, I think, a very, very needed thing. The private sector obviously has slowed down and is not able to keep up with the requirements of the growth that we have. And I hope this government work will act as a stimulus to that. There is, of course, a lot in the fine print which we are still trying to digest. But on the whole, I would say it has helped in the new technologies which are coming in. It has recognized them, which is quite a change from the past. And I think the new business models of digital currencies and things like that. There is also a great trust on the rural areas. If you see the trust on the commerce, e-commerce and communications and things like that, I think it's very good. On the manufacturing...
Alok ji, we will come to the specifics in a bit. Let me take the opening comment quickly from our esteemed panelist.
I think the biggest thing they're doing is the fact that they're looking at winding up of companies, etc., in a much shorter time frame. That gives a lot of strength to economic decision making. I think it's on the whole a good budget. There are a few.
Sure. Can I move to Rajesh Bhatia ji, Group CFO of UFLEX? Sir, you are muted. If you can unmute yourself. And my question is basically pertaining to the same manufacturing sector. Any couple of takeaways which you see specifically, which gives you that confidence that manufacturing will grow, the capacities will be better utilized in coming times, and overall there will be, basically we are on the right path. Anything which specifically comes to your mind?
I think a couple of things in this budget which point to increased manufacturing focus. One is the capex for the central government, which is up by 35% to 750,000 crores. And also along with the state's capex, it is more than 10 lakhs crores. So that itself, that huge increase of 35% itself augurs well for manufacturing sector. Then you have a very gracious PLI scheme for the solar industry, and with a target being to have clean and sustainable energy. I think these are the positives that I see in this budget. It's a growth budget. It may not be as path-breaking as one would, sort of love to have it. But I would say that overall still a decent budget in the right direction. And when, we have more clarity post the pandemic and looking at, what we did in these pandemic years and how the ecosystem has changed, I think we can always come back to more path-breaking words than this.
Sure, thanks. Vijay Sharma ji, from Jindal stainless steel point of view, I mean, we have seen increase in steel prices. There have been a lot of fluctuations in metal pricing overall, especially in the October, November, December quarter. How do you assess it from your sector's point of view? How would you rate it, sir?
Namaskar. Well,
Yep.
yes, I am from stainless ecosystem, which is part of steel. While there are many pluses in the budget, my friends have already shared, whether it is
Yes.
related with gasification, greenfield, trust, compliances, railways, RE, PLI, digital. But I would like to highlight a very, very specific announcement in the budget, which
Mhm.
is related with revocation of 4 anti-dumping slash countervailing duties. Very interestingly, all the four these revocations have got China in it. So
That's right.
industry, because these are all suspended in the last union budget, so industry is
Mhm.
little perplexed. So because
Mhm.
everyone in the world knows that China is known to provide 20 to 30% of non-WTO compliance subsidies. And we also know that Make in India is less competitive, at least 10 to 12% because of cost of logistics and cost of capital. So, but perhaps
That's
because
right.
of the commodity price increase, and please market that it is not what is happening in India. This is something because of the
Mhm.
post-pandemic recovery, demand supply, and so many things happening around, including the chip shortages. Fortunately, despite of the price increase
Mhm.
in the steel and metals, the commodities are available. The material is available, unlike chip, because of which you know what has happened. So industry is a little
Yes.
disappointed why we are not able to express the plight of the producer side to the government,
Mhm.
because the ecosystem should have a coexistence of right from the producers up to the end users. But perhaps India is
Okay.
the only country in the world which has got zero level playing field against China and Indonesia, who have got such surplus capacities available. And with great efforts, India got into the second position in case of stainless steel like steel. But this year, Indonesia is going to take over India, and Indonesia has a capacity which is 25 times more than the consumption there. So these are
Mhm.
my opening remarks. So it's a
Okay.
mixed view, but I have got many more points to share with you.
Sure.
So we will
Sure.
come later.
Sure. Uh, Dilip ji and Chandresh. Chandresh ji, you must be happy hearing something about electric batteries, battery swapping. Which to let me tell my audience that this has all been the part A of the budget. Most of the activities have been in public domain under discussion. Government has been talking about in various forums, be it manufacturing policy around drone or battery swapping policy. What do you make of it?
So, if I look at it in entirety, I don't think so. Automotive expectations are met. But when it comes to electric vehicles and battery swapping, I think it has been not path-breaking again, but yes, it has been a positive step. So, especially, the announcement that there'll be a battery swapping policy, which is in a need of the hour, because the cost of operation will go down, the batteries and the vehicles can be then sold separately, and then battery as a service will become a business model. And also when it comes to charging station, which is our key concentration.
Mhm.
One thing that is introduction of public transport, electrification of public transport will reduce the operating cost of the vehicles, and then that will also give opportunity for growth of charging infrastructure. So
Mhm.
yes, not pathbreaking, but I clearly see that this has been a very positive move,
Mhm.
especially for electric vehicles and
Mhm.
clean energy.
Okay. Dilip ji, from the point of view of job creation, especially, I would like your comments on overall budget plus on job creation initiatives which government has outlined a roadmap over next 4 or 5 years. How do you see this translating on ground? Is it all talks going to remain on paper or something will move?
Sure. No, thank you, Ashish. First of all, I felt that, overall the FM has done a very fine job of presenting a balanced budget,
Okay.
under obviously some very tough circumstances. There's clearly a focus on, boosting capex, as has been noted by the other panelists, while keeping the inflationary pressures under check, right? And I also felt that it was nice to see a good connect with the long-term strategic vision. There was clearly an attempt to draw a direct correlation to India at 2047, right? And the steps that she's taking today. So that was also pretty nice. And I personally appreciated that quite a lot. To your point, Ashish, about job creation, it came out quite clearly. I mean, there were clear numbers that were cited, I think, through the PLI investments. She spoke about 6 million jobs, that are likely to be created as a direct outcome of the investments that we are attracting through the PLI programs. However, my own view is that it's going to be very important and critical, for that vision to be realized, is that manufacturing continues to become globally competitive, right? So at several points it was noted, adoption of digital technologies and such, which is going to be very, very important, because we're talking about, Atmanirbhar Bharat, but, attracting manufacturing investments where India manufactures, not just for India, but for the world. So those things are very important and they're interrelated. So I felt that, the emphasis was there on all the right areas. All of these programs, PLI in particular, has a lot of potential. Also, as was noted, the focus on 5G, it's not, immediately intuitive to the general public, but, all of these technologies, as 5G gets rolled out, that also has a positive rub-off on manufacturing, because smart manufacturing uses these kinds of technologies. So overall, I felt that all of these were positive, but eventually it all comes down to execution on the ground.
Definitely. Alok ji, I would like to invite your comments on the manufacturing sector, especially products which have direct consumer connects. Now, salaried class was expecting some concessions, some more money, some savings to come their way. That has not happened. In that backdrop, do you see in a short-term period the demand revival, factories increasing their output? Because the cost of production, as per a recent survey done by FICCI, cost of production has gone up significantly for Indian manufacturers, especially in the manufacturing sector. How do you see that vis-a-vis that no concession has been given, no money has been put in the pockets of the salaried class? You are muted, sir.
I agree with you. I think the point you're making is very valid, and that was one of the disappointments I had in the budget, was that even as a tokenism, something should have been given to the salaried class to make them a little exuberant about the budget. I think that is a bit of an opportunity missed. But we have to remember that there are many areas where they have given investments in infrastructure, the rural push, the defense push, the communications push, as my fellow panelists talked about, 5G, plus a lot of investments, I think 7.5 lakh crores, an increase of almost 35%. I think that's going to have to pay off. The difference, again, I say, is that they're not taking things piecemeal. They're laying down a very clear roadmap for 3 to 5 years. They're not worried about an election here or an election there. They're looking at, I think they're comfortable in their skin as a long-term political player. And they're doing things with a slightly longer term perspective.
Sure.
I think businesses will pick up. I hope housing will pick up, because that's really a low-hanging fruit. And that will give a lot of disposable income all around. It will create jobs. But what we also do need is higher quality jobs. Now that is, I think, where the trick will lie. How to translate the lower quality jobs to higher paying jobs and have more disposable income all around. I am quite positive with this budget. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Execution. That's what it's about.
Vijay ji, as far as steel industry is concerned, is it a happy news for you that so many locomotives have been announced to be produced, so much of PM Gati Shakti infrastructure project, all being synced together, 25,000 kilometers of highway being produced. So demand for steel, cement, raw material, even for the packaging sector, is that a good news really on paper, or do you see it as a in this, especially the 22-23 financial year, something taking off immediately?
The economic recovery and the GDP expectations and overall growth. This is a good news. Steel and stainless, they go hand in hand with all these initiatives. So industry is very upbeat that with these initiatives, the demand is going to be generated and industry is very capable of meeting those demands. The only worrisome part is this opportunity should not be encashed by companies in China and Indonesia. That is a concern.
True.
Just to add to this point, today we have got in steel 142 million ton capacity, and globally in terms of the volume, stainless is about 3% and by value it is about 12 to 15%. So considering the importance in sustainability, specifically for stainless steel, the vision 2030 envisaging 300 million ton capacity of steel and accordingly close to 9 million tons capacity of stainless steel is a must. But to achieve it, the industry needs $160 billion equivalent investment. It's a big number. So the profitability, which is more visible in the last few quarters because of multiple reasons, external reasons like commodity, also inventory valuation support and internal operational efficiencies also. So profitability has given confidence to the industry to start investing. But such messaging by during the budget, that too very specific. I am not talking in general, because in general there are many pluses, quite futuristic. But this specific messaging wherein make in India is getting confused. So steel industry, stainless steel industry, we are in a dilemma about the investments. And somewhere I think the conflict between the different links in the total ecosystem will always be there, because input of one is output for other. So everybody feels that कि मेरा output import ना हो पर मेरा input सस्ते में import हो जाए. But we have to be more pragmatic, holistic and long-term perspective. Steel and stainless steel have to be produced in India to meet more than 100% demand of India, because now the global opportunities are also diminishing thanks to USA 2018 section 232, which was primarily because of irresponsible behavior of China and Indonesia, which started a dominoes effect. Every stainless steel producing country, they started imposing on the others. So to me, it is not globalization now, it is nationalization. We need to protect ourselves. Commodity is a boom. It is not a super cycle yet. $90 का barrel हो गया है. I am worried about Ukraine. China factor is like a black hole. I am always worried about it. We cannot have our policies based on somebody else like China's policies. So this is my take. I would pray to the government to acknowledge and support that domestic primary producers, and it has to be coexistence. Everybody in the supply ecosystem.
Definitely. Bhatia Saab, how do you see packaging and the demand for your sector increasing? With anything you see in the budget whereby you see direct correlation to your business, your quarter on quarter performance going up?
Definitely. I think if we are looking at 8 to 8.5% GDP growth, that kind of a numbers we don't see in the rest of the world. 9.2% growth in FY22 and 8.5 in the next year, and so on. So I think as a packaging industry, I definitely see a double-digit kind of volume growth in the years to come, driven not only by this GDP growth, but also by the behavioral change, where either because of the pandemic or because of the consumer behavior, more and more packaged goods are being sold. Today we see with the advent of the e-commerce, so whatever we receive in our houses is packed first in the bubble wrap and then in the outer cartons and all that. And it's grown many fold. So I think I definitely see that this budget on an overall basis helping the industry as a whole. And we as an industry always mirror more than the GDP growth, and that's what I feel that our industry is going to witness. So a part of it is attributable to the generally increased GDP growth, and part of it is to the behavioral changes, what is happening in our country. So
does UFLEX have plans of investment, setting up any other additional manufacturing facility within India in this coming fiscal?
I think we are already doing setting up a facility in Karnataka.
Okay.
So that is going to be commissioned by towards the third quarter of this year. And once that is completed, then we'll consolidate for a while and then make up our further plans.
Okay. Coming to Dilip ji, all the number of announcements which FM has laid down, and there weren't too many. She was very consciously looking at the watch so that there is no overrun of time. The budget document, the budget speech, you say it's basically, if you have compared over the years, it's pretty short and crisp. It's not running into pages. Any key takeaways which you see for the automated part of our manufacturing sector that immediately strikes some kind of thing? Because a lot has been spoken about push to infrastructure, a lot has been spoken about 5-year roadmap, 25-year roadmap, but immediately, a lot of promises still remain on paper, which were promised or part of the budget speech last budget, Feb 1 budget. Hence, I am putting it that something which immediately strikes you as something noteworthy to talk about right now.
Sure. So Ashish, my 3 key takeaways, from a manufacturing perspective. First of all, they're trying to do what the government can do is to lead with public capex push, which in turn should trigger a private capex investment cycle, as well, which we all have been waiting for. And it was very nice to hear the UFLEX plans, which Mr. Bhatia just spoke about. I think one was that which was very nice. As I mentioned previously, the comments that have been made, the emphasis that is being laid on PLI and creating a globally competitive manufacturing in India, and the focus on digital adoption. Although smart manufacturing per se wasn't really called out, at least I couldn't catch it, but I think the intent was certainly there. So these and there was elsewhere mention of skilling, which I think is exceedingly important, because if you're talking about 6 million new jobs, you need to have the talent available to fit into those 6 million new jobs that you're going to create. So there's been a focus on a well-rounded plan which will ensure that there aren't any speed bumps, right?
So for your company and your comparison with, say, your US market, anything which is in your pipeline which you are going to introduce, maybe you are investing, or maybe in terms of training, maybe in terms of anything which you plan in this fiscal which you will be bringing into Indian?
So, to specifically talk about us, we are certainly preparing ourselves. First of all, next year we complete 40 years of our presence in India. So we've been present for a very long period of time, and 90% or close to that percentage of our revenues actually come from indigenous Indian companies, which are companies that originate from India. But as we analyze from our perspective, sitting here in India and globally looking at India, we clearly see, a multi-year, growth trend in terms of, opportunity, expanding. So the kind of capabilities that we are building up, Ashish, these are capabilities which would help our customers absorb digital technologies to create a globally competitive, manufacturing base. And when you begin to absorb these technologies, it's a systemic change. There are a whole lot of other considerations that also have to be taken into account. To give a very topical example, when you absorb the digital technologies into mission critical applications like manufacturing, you have to be very mindful of cybersecurity considerations. So we are building up those capabilities in India so that the Indian manufacturing sector has that advice. So those are the kind of capabilities that we are investing into just as we speak. So we've been adding people in India all through the pandemic period, and we've been actually creating a lot of these capabilities because we see that step up coming.
Chandresh ji, talk us through the impact on the EV sector overall. I mean, the sales of electric vehicle are obviously going up. There is a huge interest. Every big, small players are investing it. They have products. They are launching products. How do you see 22-23 financial year, especially from charging point of view, the ramp up of charging network infrastructure, and as well as the sale of EVs, whether it's four-wheelers, whether it's two-wheelers, or even in the commercial vehicle side?
Right. So from how we look at it at this point in time, I think commercial vehicle sale is going to see a good high, especially in L5 sector, cargo and passenger both. That is where we see the maximum uptake coming from. Today, even if you look at it, three-wheeler segment contributes to more than 11 to 14% of overall sale of three-wheelers. And then it is two-wheelers, and then four-wheelers are below 0.5%. So I think that the two-wheeler sales are going to kick up. Again, commercial vehicle sale for three-wheelers are going to kick up. Four-wheeler, I still see, there will be growth, but not at least for next 2 years what we are expecting. That is how I see.
But in terms of manufacturing, especially of the battery and the infrastructure ramp up, enough investments have been made. Are they adequate for coming year and 2 year between all the players combined, or you expect more money to come into this?
Yes, there will be more. So the new battery swapping policy will see more investment coming in, especially in batteries and infrastructure related projects. That is one thing we clearly see. But certainly there is need for more investment in the current year and coming years. That is how we look at it. Coming to how EV charging infra will look at, again, there will be charging infra demand will be more for the commercial vehicle side than for the private vehicle side. And I think that is where the market looks to be going at this point in time.
And what about job creation in this sector? I mean,
yes. Mr. Sawhney and then was talking about skilling. Skilling is such a important thing, especially when it comes to EV and EV charging infrastructure. It is a completely new industry, something that, when we look for individuals and people who work with us, I think we still find that the current available courses or whatever the academia is present is not enough for the skilling of EV and EV charging infrastructure related, especially EV charging infra, because it involves a lot of industries starting from electrical, civil. It involves charging in EV charging stations which are new and different. So it is a combination of all these things, and skilling is a very important thing, something that we are very keen. And we ourselves have produced a lot of course material, and we are going to do that in the future as well, specifically for EV charging infra related developments.
Okay. Alok ji, if I can come to you next, specifically since the domains you operate in, maybe cement, fertilizer, sugar, you said it's an overall good budget. Based on those good vibes created by Finance Minister today, are there any plans for your company would you like to share? Are you in the investment mode for 22-23? Any additional manufacturing units coming up? Anything you can share from your companies and your group perspective?
I will break my answer into two parts. One is in terms of investments and one is in terms of research.
Sure.
We are in the sugar and ethanol space.
Yeah.
Sugar, we have already gone through a fairly large expansion. And in ethanol, we have been working very hard, and we have actually almost doubled our capacity in the last year. And that is good for us because the government is very clearly on the ethanol track. Even in this budget, they have given some fillip to dissuade people from using non-ethanol blended petrol. I think the government is working very hard on green technologies, and our industrial fiber business is a green technology, and I hope that will come back to India. As of now, we are only exporting. Maybe our companies will look at buying it locally. And we are looking at our health sector, which is chemicals base chemicals for pharmaceuticals. and we are looking at setting up a new business there. Apart from that, in our research and development, we have two areas we've taken up. One is with regard to green hydrogen and storage of hydrogen, which is actually going to be one of the biggest challenges once hydrogen technology comes in. And the second is on retrieving PCBs and motherboards as and when they come up for waste disposal. So that is going to become another big challenge. Both these areas, I hope in the next year or two, we will have good and functional technologies within our group developed by us in India. So I think the budget is, in that sense, giving us a sense of the right direction that we are taking.
So in terms of, are there any big investments planned? Because government is upping its spend, which is clearly spelled out. They are going to pump in more money. The capital expenditure is, numbers are up. It is the private sector which is often comes in the debate that is where the bottlenecks are. They are not investing enough. So the budget lays down. I mean, the overseas investment numbers have gone up this year. Government's own investments are there, numbers are there. Next year plan is there. But what about private sector? I mean, what is
already looking at setting up a new pharmaceutical-based chemical industry in Gujarat.
Okay.
From that, in the defense side, we have looked at armored vehicles, and we are also looking at drones. We already have invested in drones, and I hope by the end of this financial year, in the next 3 months, we will actually have working models available.
Okay.
And we have to display them both for police forces as well as for private areas like Finance Minister talked about.
Yeah, drone, Kisan drone and all that. I mean,
we hope we'll be able to get into that sector also.
Right. Vijay ji, from your company's perspective and even your group company's perspective in terms of investments, job creation, anything which you can touch upon in line with whatever has been spoken in the budget speech by the finance minister?
Sure. Well, I will be speaking on behalf of Jindal Stainless Group only.
Sure.
We, by the way, this year we have completed 50 years.
Oh,
and we, in the capacity, we are having about 38% capacity of stainless steel in the country. Even prior to this budget, like I said, that we are quite upbeat overall, despite of these small hiccups here and there. We have already made the commercial commitment for increasing our capacity from 1.9 million tons to 2.9 million tons. So it's about 50% jump in our capacity, which should be in place in about 1.5 to 2 years time. And we have also, fortunately, because we had already built the infrastructure required for this expansion, our investment is relatively much lower than ideally for a greenfield project. So it is about 1/3. In addition, you might be aware that we are the world's largest producer of razor blade steel. हम आपको रोज सुबह टच करते हैं, and we supply razor blade to practically every big name, Gillette and everybody in the world, and we have committed close to 450 crores to add to such capacities in our Hisar. So we are upbeat on the investment part. I would like to add one more thing. Regarding that ecosystem development, we being the largest, we have got certain responsibilities also. So we are investing whether resources or the time a lot into the overall building the ecosystem for the stainless steel. To name the few, we have created a concept called Stainless Academy, wherein we have already invested in 4 vans, which are the mobile institutes which move around the country. And in last 3 to 4 years, we have trained 9,000 fabricators. इसलिए शायद आप देखते हैं कि आजकल गेट वगैरह स्टेनलेस के शायद थोड़े ज़्यादा दिखने शुरू हुए हैं. We have already introduced the stainless steel course in 11 institutes. We are about to have a MOU with Haryana state government. We are about to have a MOU with NSDC, whether it is the downstream clusters training part or the fabricators part. So these are the multiple efforts being done. And also, interestingly, in case of India, the per capita consumption of steel as well as stainless steel is 1/3. There are multiple reasons, disposable income and our power, so all those things. But we are investing a lot in these substitutions because stainless steel in the last 35-40 years has been the fastest growing metal among the competitors. Around 6% as compared to 2.5 to 3% at the global 35-40 years. Though in India, in steel also, we are doing quite well. So we are into a lot of business development activities, and in fact we have sort of adopted certain jails in UP. हम उनके inmates को भी fabricator training देते हैं so that they are able to, and of course all these investments and ecosystem development that lead to general awareness and also the employment and also make in India.
Great, that's great to hear. Rajesh ji, now let's talk about export side because December में numbers आए थे. हमारे इंपोर्ट तो बढ़ते जा रहे हैं और चाइना मेजर, हम चाइना से मेजर $100 बिलियन का इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं. As far as exports are concerned, do you see some kind of impetus, some kind of encouragement coming in your company's plan, your industry sector? What happens to the export front?
Yeah, I think export in the current financial years have also shown tremendous quantum jump as compared to what they were in the previous years. And so on the export side also, everybody is doing so well. And I think overall as an industry, if we see in India, I think probably this financial year is probably, sort of the best, where the PAT for the top companies, I'm told, is above 10%. So I don't think so. Industry as a whole there may be some specific areas for the industries, but given that there was a lot of liquidity which jacked up all the commodity prices. So everybody is happily laughing to the bank, and that's the party continues. From our side, in our industry, yes, there has been a lot of capacity in the packaging industry, which is set up in India for export to Europe and North America, which are the largest consumers for the packaging industry. But we didn't choose that path, so we chose to set up factories close to the consumption centers. So, but yes, on an overall basis, in our industry, exports are rising. A lot of capacity is being added in the next couple of years. On the packaging film side, we'll see definitely, at least 20% more capacity coming up as compared to what it is today. So, and most of it is meant for the export market, because India put together can absorb 2 factories a year for the packaging films based on the current capacities. So if there are 15 factories which are coming, obviously, everybody is looking at a very huge market in Europe, and which, basically because the base itself is so big, so even a 3% growth there gives you enough volumes to keep on, increasing your supplies to those markets. But yes, our policy is, we have factories in USA, we have factories in Europe, so we are being closer to the customer. And we in the pandemic period, started operationalize a lot of new capacity expansion in those territories, which by the grace of God and with the good times, we never realized that we'll do the 100% capacity utilization levels in the first year itself, which we are currently witnessed in those territories where our increased capacities came on stream during this pandemic times.
Any taxation related issues affecting your sector which remains unresolved or which you're looking forward to?
I think in our sector, we are looking for, the government being more clear. Yes, they had introduced some guidelines in August, and now the extended producer responsibility. There are a lot more clarity being coming, because, worldwide, yes, there is a noise against, the plastic polluting the environment and all that. Right. So we helping build the government that, it's not a bad thing, because, today, and the government has also realized this, that, what we are doing is primary packaging, which is basically goes to pack food. So if you can't live without that. It's not a secondary packaging, which you can live without that, but it's a primary packaging. So you have to find sources in terms of creating capacities where, the recycling is given impetus. You have today the biodegradable plastic solutions, whereby even if you and me, throw our chips packet after eating on the roadside, beachside, they become biomass at the end of its assigned life cycle. So I think that's where, our industry, because, today still the mindset is, it's a polluting industry, and the plastics is, is bad for our oceans, is bad for environment. So I think next couple of years on this part, there'll be a lot of focus. Yes, we lost that focus during this pandemic because the focus shifted elsewhere, but we'll come back to that, and that's what we are readying ourselves for.
Dilip ji, if you have to explain to your US counterpart there, what are the good takeaways and what are the challenges still which remains in Indian based on the budget presented, how would you sum it up for someone who's sitting in America, who's looking at investing in India?
Ashish, that's always a tough sell, right? Because there is no such thing as a perfect budget ever, right? Which keeps everyone happy. But in addition to what I've already noted, and actually I was taking notes of the comments which other business leaders on the panel have already noted. Mr. Sriram spoke about electronics recycling, and they have an interest over there. Mr. Bhatia just now spoke about biodegradable packaging and so forth. And of course, we have Chandresh, whose entire business is on electric vehicles, which has a sustainability consideration. So I think there is a very strong, and that's one aspect which we should spend maybe a minute or so talking about, because the budget did speak about an emphasis on sustainability. There was a PLI push on solar. Renewables have been given prominence. So as I communicate back to our headquarters, I would certainly be putting an emphasis, because that jives very well with what our own not only what our stated position is, but we ourselves are mobilizing a lot of investment in terms of creating technologies which makes manufacturing a lot more sustainable. Right. So that's clearly one factor which resonated very well for me personally, since you asked me that question. Right. And it was also very heartening to note that, the comments which have been coming from the other panelists. So that was the other thing. I think the other thing which I would also be talking about is this continued push on, forward-looking policies, emphasis on digital, which was clearly, that's been a consistent trend, of the government. And of course, there was focus also on electronics manufacturing. We've been hearing, there was a PLI scheme just a month back announced for semiconductors. These are things which are, extremely interesting for us as a global business. So I can go on, but those are few top things.
I think a couple of things which the budget, probably they went under notice, that, in the defense sector, now they've said that 68% will be sourced locally as compared to 58% till now. And that's a quantum jump. And I also saw that, somewhere that in the gift city now, all the world-class educational institutes are allowed to come and set up universities, higher education. So which means that, you will have all the top universities coming up and, setting up those campuses in India, which, augurs very well for the,
so the finance minister in her speech also outlined litigation resolutions, concession to tax-paying citizens. The combined noise to the investors or to the people outside is that we are not running after, we are not going to hold people, like, we don't want to fight cases, we don't want to prolong litigations, etc. That's a good takeaway. Maybe Vijay ji, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, we talked about exports. To me, when we talk about exports, the word quality comes in the mind. And today, Honorable Finance Minister, it was a good, interesting point that in the public procurement, quality criteria, it will not remain L1. So just to talk about the quality for a company, a group like mine, 50%, we are exporting about 20% of our total output. and out of that 20%, 50% goes to Europe, and within that 50% goes to North Europe. North Europe, when I say, it is Germany and France. So you understand what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
And just to give an example, there is a project going on. It is called ITER, which is the replication of the energy being generated by the sun through fusion mechanism. It is about 7 countries are participating. One huge reactor is being made. That reactor has got 3,800 tons of stainless steel. Only 2 companies in the world have supplied. One is Jindal Stainless. So, but unfortunately, I will come back to that China. So, so when somebody is producing such type of quality, which is acceptable right up to the nuclear, which is extreme value addition in the spectrum, then you have to compete with people, you know what. So, but this quality aspect is an encouraging thing in the budget.
Alok ji, can I just quickly take your comment on this MSME sector? We haven't touched that much. MSME sector has been in distress in past 24 months. Lot of credit schemes have been extended. Even in this budget, there has been talk about it. How do you see that ecosystem coming out? Because till MSME sector shows actual sign of recovery, till they can borrow easily, reinvest capital, employment is not going to be generated by that sector. So how do you see this budget impacting that? Are there any positives, real positives, which will work on ground now?
Very important sector, because that is the sector which can create jobs in a hurry. There's no doubt about it. And I hope that with the high degree of infrastructure development, defense development, etc., this sector is able to come out. The support from the banks, etc., should continue. Banks are having a problem lending, but all the support that they've given in the last 2 years should continue for at least 1 more year. I think the plan to reduce that new company section 115AB should continue as they've decided. One more comment I had, which is a little different, is that I think what people miss out is the huge use of information technology for reaching the masses. Till now, information technology has been something which is for the urban area. But I think some of the things that they've done to reach the masses, like new TV channels for schooling, digital university, mental health TV channels and outreach, I think these are things which will make a lot of headway in the rural India. And hopefully with that, for example, food processing industry will actually go out of the big cities and go into the areas which need it. And that will help MSMEs in a big way.
Okay. Vijay, you want to say something?
This is a very nice point you raised. All of us are missing the MSME, which in fact is so important. Well, the importance and the significance is known to all of us. I get a lot of opportunities to really interact with the MSMEs on the ground. While the intent and the content of the comment is really applaudable, but I will refer the registrations in the new Udyam till November 21, only 9% MSMEs have registered. In the earlier UAM, less than 20% were registered. I will quote a Parliamentary Standing Committee report number 308, which was tabled on 27th of July. Topic being impact of COVID-19 on MSME sector and mitigation strategy. The 2 lines say schemes are inadequate as more of loan offerings and long-term measures instead of improving cash flow to generate demand as immediate relief. So the implementation on the ground is a challenge. Beautiful schemes, but you need a consultant to interpret and get it extended. Another unfortunate situation is MSME by definition is in contradiction to the efficient supply chain management system, whether it is scale, whether it is the automation, following the compliances, issues of technology, lack of financial expertise, even उनको तो ये लगता है कि लोन लेने से शायद धंधा खराब हो जाता है. So my take on MSME is, which I'm speaking on behalf of them at the moment, that awareness, simple access, and immediacy. The first window should be able to solve them. Don't expect them, because when we say the word MSME, हम उसको शायद money में नहीं convert कर पाते हैं. The micro is 93%, 5.8 crores, 5 crores. उसको भी अगर मैं ABC analysis करूँगा, I will find so many small people who are one man army, so चाचा ताऊ बेटा भतीजा वो अपना दुकान छोड़ेंगे कि क्यों में लगेंगे. So something so easy app, ease of doing business with limited information, disbursement with trust, something like Arogya Setu, which is not a e-commerce, but it's so simple. So I think there are two words. One is on the ground, one is on the internet, but intent and content is really laudable.
Okay. Now we are coming to the end. So quickly, I will just ask Chandresh ji first. Out of 10, how many points do you think you would like to give to finance minister for this budget from your sectors and specifically your sector's perspective?
Probably 7.
7. And where have you cut those 3 numbers?
As I told you, in general, automotive sector is not clearly, happy with what has come out. But even when it comes to electric vehicles, we are seeing, that finance minister spoke about introduction of policy and public transport being electrified and EVs in general. But we needed more clarity. That is where it is lacking.
Thanks. Rajesh ji, आप कितने marks देंगे इनको 10 में से?
I'll give it 8.
Okay.
Simply because, we've still not too finicky about the fiscal prudence. We're saying that, growth is important. So we are focusing more on the growth and, less on a fiscal prudence. And we say that, that can come in the next few years. But as of now, what is important is, growth led by capex cycle, both by the government as well as the private investment.
And Dilip ji, what's your verdict?
I agree with Mr. Bhatia. I think I'll give it a 7.5 or 8 myself. Largely on account of the fact that there is balance, because that is very important. It is a very complex exercise. That is one, and the other thing is also that, even though we are coming out of, we are still not technically out of the Omicron wave, but there's been a lot of intent to look ahead and drive the growth. The FM was not particularly burdened with just doing short-term things. There was a long-term vision as well. But I wish I could have given more, but 8 would be a good thing, because there are a couple of things which could have been better, but wish list is always there.
Sure. Alok ji, what's your outcome? आप कितना देंगे इस budget को?
Ashish, I would also give it a strong 8. I would give it a strong 8 because I think it was a great directional budget. They could have done more. One was in regard to disposable income with the individuals. And the second is there wasn't too much for the healthcare sector. I think the healthcare sector deserves a little.
Okay. Vijay ji, आप कितना देंगे?
If temporarily I ignore the conflicting message related with that, I would like to give 8.
Oh, nice. And on GST collections, quickly, since we have 1 more minute, quickly, your reactions on ever increasing record GST collections month after month. What do they tell you in 1 word? Vijay ji, starting from you.
It means that despite of the this Omicron, despite of these challenges industries facing, the resilience is good enough and the zeal is there to produce more. Market is supporting, and I hope that every month the new record is created.
Rajesh ji, on GST?
So I would say that I'll be a bit, cautious there, because, today we've seen a lot of jack up in the commodity prices, which is adding to the GST revenues. I think once the things normalizes, I think that's the way to see, and whether the growth, what we are expecting from this budget can substitute for those inflated prices in the next year or so. I think I'd love to see that.
Sure. Chandresh, आप GST का कुछ issues हैं?
One thing that we clearly see is, though the charging stations, are at 5% GST, but when we are selling energy, when energy as a service is included, we are looking at 18% GST today. It's no input credit to the end user. So that is something of a big problem. I think we would suggest it should be 0%, just like selling it. It's like how it is when electricity is sold. That is what we expect.
Alok ji, on GST, you will have any comments? Record collections happening, though, I mean, prices are up and...
Yes, my simple comment is that I hope the pie is actually getting bigger.
Okay.
The bigger the pie, the more we'll be able to redistribute and uplift the citizens of our country.
Okay. Dilip ji, your comments on GST, if any?
I would see that as an indicator that points towards the GDP growth numbers that were pointed out, right? I think it supports the thesis that there is strong GDP that's going to happen. Yeah, but I concur with the other panelists that it's got to be taken with a grain of salt.
Right. So overall, kind of our panelists have come to kind of consensus that it's 8 on 10 budget. There are a lot of upsides. There are a lot of good things there. Few of the challenges remain. We thank you all, Vijay ji, Rajesh, Chandresh, Alok ji, Dilip ji, for joining us and with such a healthy and frank interaction on this budget. Thank you so much.